He's the horror hunter from down under. He will go in search every week of the best and worst in horror movies throughout the month of October. His mission? Don't come back until he's found some of the best and worst putrid piles of horror goodness you could ever imagine. Next up, from a few years back, we're going to be looking at Let Me In. Now, before I go any further, I should tell you, I have not seen the film that this is based off of, which I believe is called Let the Right One In. Not only have I not seen Let the Right One In, but personally I don't know that I ever will see it. Not because I don't like foreign horror films, but because I really fell in love with this one the first time I saw it. And I've heard from multiple people that the original is pretty much a shot-for-shot remake. So, let me know below if I should actually see Let the Right One In. I love Let Me In, so let's talk about that one. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about is I love the look of this film. There's a lot of dull colors, a lot of winter colors. So you've got whites, grays, overcast shadows, that kind of thing. It really adds to the feel of this really unusual and strange sort of vampire movie. And then, of course, you've got an absolutely amazing cast, particularly our lead actress, Chloe Grace Moretz. Now, I loved her in Kick-Ass. I loved her in pretty much everything I've ever seen her in. She's just a really talented young woman. Now, I want to talk about why this movie works so much for me. The idea of a boy befriending a vampire, not realizing she's a vampire, but knowing there's something odd and different about her. Much like there's something odd and different about him because he's seen as a loser or an outcast at school. And then to see that the two of them establish this sort of unusual bond and that he becomes her caregiver, much like the old man at the beginning of the movie is her caregiver. And you just realize that this is how this vampire lives from generation to generation. She finds that one person who she can connect with, and it doesn't bother them that she's not real, not a real human, that is to say. And then the two of them sort of become inseparable, for lack of a better term. I think this movie works so well for multiple reasons, but the biggest of which is the fact that they set it in the 1980s. Now, I'm not sure if the original was set in the 1980s or not, but it works really well here. And the reason it works well here is because, well, I love the 1980s as much as Aaron does. And, you know, the horror hunter, he thinks that the 1980s is the perfect time to set any movie, really. But the 1980s works really well here because you actually get to see some trademark 1980s things. Now, I love this movie, and I think that it's going to be just as well regarded as the original within a couple of years. But let's talk about something else interesting about this movie while we're at it, shall we? How about the fact that this was the first film produced by Hammer after a long absence of no Hammer horror on the big screen? Now, if you're not familiar with Hammer horror, let me explain. Hammer was a company from the 1960s throughout the 70s and even on into the 80s, I believe. But what they basically were a high-end, more bloody, for lack of a better word, classic horror studio. So they did classic vampire movies, things like they did the Christopher Lee Dracula movies, and they did some mummy movies and some other classic Universal style monster movies, but they made them gorier, and they were not produced by Universal, they were produced by Hammer, but they had some absolutely amazing talent involved, including David Prowse, who was the suit actor for Darth Vader in the original Star Wars trilogy. He played Frankenstein in the Hammer Frankenstein movies. You've got Peter Cushing from episode 4, who played Van Helsing in a lot of the Christopher Lee Dracula movies. And of course, Christopher Lee himself, one of the masters of horror, playing that iconic monster. So, to have Hammer's first film back after all this time be a new vampire movie was absolutely amazing to see. And I love this movie, and I hope that more and more people discover it as years go on. But comment below if I should see the original just to make a comparison. I'm curious as to what you think. I'm the Horror Hunter. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of 31 Days of Horror, and I'll see you guys later.